So one day I seen the friendly neighborhood guy Yermy looking sad. Hey Yermy, what's the matter?
Yermy needs some money. That's what's wrong.
Well, why don't you make a YouTube channel? That's how I make money.
I don't know nothing about no YouTube, but if it can make me $5, can you teach me?
Yeah, I got you. So the first step is to figure out what you want your channel to be about.
Hey, can one of y'all help me with something?
Come on, old man. Can't you see I'm trying to learn?
I'm willing to pay $5.
I'll be right back, Desmond. Yeah, $5.
So all I need you to do is move this bin right over here.
Okay, that's easy.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go in and get your $5.
Yeah, get my $5. All right, Yermy. All you gotta do is move the bin. Whoa, Nelly, this is heavy. What's in here anyways? Ooh.
Yermy, I got your 5. What the?
I ain't seen one of these since I was a boy. Woo!
That's my grandson's. Get out of here, Yermy.
Fine then, I'll be on my way. Just give me my money.
You didn't even move the bin. I ain't paying you.
What?
Oh.
Woo! You better give me my money.
Okay, here you go.
Yeah, $5.
So I was just playing my drums when my wife barged in yelling at me to hang up our TV in our room. I told her I'd get to it later, and she said if I didn't hang the TV up by the time the trash truck came, she was going to throw it away. The truck was coming in an hour, so I had no choice but to get to it. I ran upstairs, moved the dresser out of the way, and then came back downstairs to get my drill. But my drill wasn't in my tool chest. I searched the entire house and still couldn't find it. I asked Caden if he'd seen it, and he said Kaylani was playing with it. So I asked Kaylani where the drill was, and she said our dog's name's Snoop. I asked Snoop where the drill was, and then it hit me. Dogs can't talk. A half an hour had already gone by, so I had no choice but to use a wrench to anchor the mount to the wall, which was taking forever. After the mount was up, I had to cut holes in the wall to hide the cables. Once that was done, all I had to do was mount the TV, but my stomach started growling. I ran to the bathroom, but it was taking me a while to finish. I could hear the trash truck coming, but I wasn't done yet. I heard Destiny moving the TV, and I yelled out, "Wait!" I finally finished, but it was too late. The TV was gone, and so was the truck. So I'm freaking out this morning because we're visiting family this week, and Caden lost his MacBook charger. Since he's homeschooled now, I needed to find it fast so he could do his schoolwork. First, I checked my parents' house where he's been sleeping, but no luck. Then I searched the backyard, and it wasn't there either. I decided to drive to Best Buy to buy him a new one, but they weren't open yet. Around this time, we usually take the kids to Lifetime, so I thought maybe they'd have a charger, but nope. None there either. When we got back to my parents' house, I went into the backyard to think about where his charger could be. Suddenly, I spotted the power block under the tree. I looked up and saw the cable dangling from the branches. I was totally confused about how it got up there. So I checked my parents' backyard camera and saw Caden tossing it up there. When I asked him why he did it, he admitted he was just trying to avoid doing his schoolwork. Now I'm wondering if we should put him back in school or not. What do you think? I was really upset because every morning I catch my son playing Fortnite instead of doing his homeschool work. This was my 7th warning, so I had to take action. First, I tried putting a passcode on his TV, but he somehow figured out a way around it. Next, I hit his remote control, but then I remembered he had a second one. So I took that remote too, thinking I finally had him cornered. A few minutes later, I checked on him and saw he was working on his school assignments. But then I noticed he was having way too much fun. He's never enjoyed schoolwork this much. When I got closer, I realized he was playing Fortnite on his laptop. I snatched the laptop and installed a blocker so he couldn't play any games. I told him to get back to work. When I came back to check on him, his head was down like he was sleeping. I walked over to wake him up and found him playing Fortnite on his phone instead. At that point, I'd had enough. I grabbed a hammer and smashed his devices. I told him to get back to work, but then I realized he couldn't because I just smashed his laptop. So I'm really angry because someone beat my high score on the Pac-Man game at my parents' house. I couldn't let someone take my title, so I had to retake the throne. I started playing the game, but every time I got close to beating the high score, I lost. I thought my hands were just sweaty, so I drove to the store, bought some gloves to keep my hands dry, and tried again. I got really close once more, but those colorful monsters got me again. I figured maybe going for a run would sharpen my skills, but it didn't help. After that run, I was a little tired, so I drove to the store and got a Red Bull, which I hadn't had in a long time. I got a burst of energy and started going wild. I knew I was ready, so I rushed to the game to reclaim my title. I stayed focused, kept my cool, and finally beat the high score. I was so exhausted afterward that I took a nap. Suddenly, I woke up to someone cheering. I looked up and it was my dog, Snoop. I can't believe my dog beat my title. So I'm feeling nervous this morning because we're taking our baby daughter to her first amusement park. I've always had a fear of rides breaking down, so I didn't want her to get on any. First, I tried to keep her entertained in this fun maze, but she quickly got bored. Then I brought her over to the goats at the petting zoo, but she lost interest after just a few minutes. I even tried to bribe her with gifts from the gift shop, but she still wanted to go on the rides. So I showed her the splash pad, hoping she would forget about the rides for a while. Just when I thought she stopped asking about them, Kaden came over and started talking about the rides. I had no choice but to take her on one. I got on it with her, and I might have been even more scared than she was. But thankfully, it ended quickly. Just when I thought it was all over, she said she wanted to go on the roller coaster, which is my biggest fear. I was biting my nails all the way to the front of the line. It turned out she was too small to ride, and I felt relieved that I didn't have to face that ride. But then Kaden said he still wanted to go on it. I was so terrified on that roller coaster that I fainted. I woke up yelling because I realized I hadn't bought Kaylani her own tablet for our flight tomorrow. After having to lend her my phone on the last trip, I was determined to get her one. I quickly drove to Best Buy, but they didn't open until 10 a.m. and it was only 9, so I headed back to my Tesla to watch some shows while I waited. I ended up falling asleep, and when I woke up, it was already 2 p.m. As I got out of the car, I remembered I had to coach Little League basketball at the park. After that was over, I was excited to grab that tablet, but then Destiny called to remind me that I needed to watch the kids while she ran her errands. I returned home frustrated because I knew Best Buy would be closed by the time she got back. But just then, I realized Kaylani was missing. I searched every room, panicking because I couldn't find her anywhere. Right when I was about to call 911, I heard some noises coming from my closet. It turns out Kaylani found my old tablet that went missing a few years ago. I finally had some peace for tomorrow after all. I woke up yelling because the family had to be at the airport in an hour, and I hadn't packed yet. I couldn't let us miss our flight, so I had to move fast. First, I dashed to the garage to grab my suitcase, but then I saw a lizard. I couldn't go on vacation knowing a lizard was living in my garage, so I had to catch it. I opened the garage, grabbed a mop, and chased it out like a pro. Then I ran back upstairs to pack my clothes. I had no idea what the weather would be like in New Jersey, so I asked Alexa. She said she couldn't connect to the internet. I couldn't go on vacation with the internet down. I raced downstairs to restart the internet. Finally, I used my phone to check the weather, and it said it was gonna be hot. I pulled out all my shorts and tank tops. Then I realized I checked the weather for Miami, and it was gonna be cold in New Jersey. I rushed back to my closet to grab my jeans and sweaters, but they were missing. Just then, my driver called and said he was outside. I had no choice but to pack my summer clothes and hope for the best. As I was taking the suitcases down, I noticed another suitcase. I opened it up, and there were my jeans. Turns out Destiny packed my clothes for me, and I just wasted an hour. So today, Destiny wanted to visit the 9/11 Museum. I've had a lot of fear surrounding the events of September 11th since that day, so I was feeling a bit nervous. After breakfast, Destiny was about to call an Uber, but I suggested we walk to delay us going. Just our luck, it started to rain, so we decided to get a ride instead. As we got closer to the new World Trade Center, my nerves kicked in even more. The thought of being in the same place where the Twin Towers once stood was overwhelming. When I saw the building, I told Destiny I wasn't sure I could do it, but she encouraged me to face my fears. Walking into the museum, my heart was pounding. I stepped into the bathroom to take a moment to pray and give myself a little pep talk. Once we put on our headphones to hear the stories of what happened, I started to feel more grounded. We saw so many artifacts that were recovered after the building's collapse. As we learned more, my fear began to shift into appreciation for all the people who came together to help one another during such a challenging time. By the end of our visit, I realized that while those events were a tragedy, it was important for me to confront my childhood trauma. This experience turned out to be a step toward healing, and I'm grateful I went.